As we've shown you, foreclosure starts are increasing, and it's finally getting interesting to start tracking the foreclosure market. We are going to run through the Southern California Foreclosure Report, but even more importantly, we're going to show you where you can find foreclosure deals. Even if you don't have a giant bag of cash sitting around, there still may be deals to be had for you. So let's dive into the data, starting with the notices of default, and we're going to run through this much more quickly than we usually do because I want to show you that there's opportunity. And yes, you can see it right here. You can see that the notices of default, so if folks missed a payment, minimum of 120 days later, the notice of default will be filed. 90 days later would be the notice of sale, and 21 days later would be the sale itself. That's the fastest the process can move. Usually takes much longer. But we don't know for sure people are behind on payments until a notice of default is filed. That's a public notice that anybody can track, foreclosure.com, etc., other places to track that. And looking at the notices of default, we got normal years here. We see an increase, and this increase is big. Even when you compare it to 2011, which is a bigger time, we're still at a high level of notices of default. Now you see this little outlier here, San Diego is down year over year. Yeah, that's because ICE, where we get this data, used to be Black Knight, isn't always accurate, and it drives me crazy. There's no reason to believe that the notices of default are down year over year in San Diego. I feel like this is an error in the data, and we can't fix this, so my apologies. But what you can be doing is you could be tracking it through foreclosure.com, find those notices of default in San Diego, and find deals. There's opportunity. We're seeing more people now publicly being behind on payments. Now, there's not historically huge numbers, but enough to find a deal for you. You don't need to buy every house in your county. You just got to buy a few, right? Or one in most cases. We're going to talk about the advantages owner occupants have. And then the notices of trustee sale. So again, the second phase in the process, and this is where it's starting to get real. There's an actual sale date on the notice of trustee sale, and those are up as well. And there, San Diego's down year over year. I don't believe it. Something's wrong in the numbers, and it's annoying. But we can see 2011, huge numbers in a month of notices of trustee sale. Why? Well, the whole world was falling apart at that time. Values dropping, and that's a big difference today. So in LA, 270 notices of trustee sale went out in September, and all of those people, for the most part, most likely have equity in their property. Back here, not the case. Nobody had equity. Values were continuing to drop. So that's an important difference. What that means is they don't have to go all the way through the foreclosure process, but we're going to show you where the deals are potentially in the properties that do make it through the foreclosure process. We can see that REO properties, we're seeing an increase. 26 properties went back in LA to the bank. Now there's a couple things that can happen for a trustee sale. Number one, the trustee sale can be pushed. So the date that's on the notice of trustee sale, that sale can be pushed into the future, and it happens very frequently. It's very rare that a property is foreclosed on in that first notice of trustee sale date. But even before that property gets to the sale, somebody could buy it. It could be sold on the open market. They could buy it off market. Bankruptcy could be filed. That would stop this process, so it won't make it to the auction process. So those that actually do make it to the auction process, it can be purchased by a third party. So people show up with cashier's checks for millions of dollars. This is not an exaggeration. And they buy properties at the auction steps. And this is not for you. Unless you're an absolute pro, they will eat you alive. They're sharks. It's fun to go watch this, see the pros. They are absolute pros at this. Do not go there with a bag of cash. If you're a beginner, even if you've been doing it a while, you still got to be careful. So don't show up with bags of cash there. And you can't finance property, you buy it at the courthouse steps. So a third party can buy it, or it can go back to the bank. So that's what we're seeing here. These properties are real estate owned. What does that mean? They're real estate owned by the bank. And we can see that there were many more properties going back to the bank historically in other years. This dip here is because of the foreclosure moratorium during COVID. Not many properties were going, and we're starting to return to more normal numbers, but not crazy huge numbers. 1,600 properties in 1 month in LA. Crazy numbers of properties going back to the bank. That doesn't count any bought by third party, because there were a lot of people flipping homes back then. So where are the deals? Hey, that guy looks familiar. It's me. It's a video I shot a couple years ago now. I do need to update it, talking about the SB 1079 process in the state of California. The way foreclosures work dramatically changed a couple years ago. It has been updated. And what it states is that after the auction, whether it goes back to the lender or it goes to a third party, that eligible bidders can bid on that property after the auction. It's a crazy thing. It upended a lot of the market. So third parties who bought it at the trustee sale were getting ready to go ahead and list their properties for sale. Now they need to wait. So within 15 days, folks can enter an intent to bid. That's for eligible bidders. And then another 30 days to get their cash in there. So another 45 days after the auction are added to the process now. But it's an all-cash process. You cannot finance it. As far as eligible bidders go, if it's a renter that's in there, they have a superpower. I did a video on that. They can match the auction's bid. If it's an owner-occupant, they can bid. If you're going to move into it and you have to sign a form that says you're going to move into it, you can bid. And then there's a whole list of other people who can bid, nonprofits, land trusts, etc. They can bid as well. But bear in mind that those folks, and part of the new legislation, are going to have to make it affordable housing for 30 years. It will be deed restricted. The SB 1079 process is very cool for owner occupants and renters. The problem being, you got to have bags of cash. Now, the bags of cash are safer than if you're to go to the auction, but a lot of people don't have bags of cash to do this. So let's talk about where else you're going to get a deal on a foreclosure. Click that foreclosure.com link below so you don't miss a deal in your neighborhood. And here we go. So you can find these on the MLS. Now, I know that's not exciting. You don't feel like you're going to get a deal. There's going to be more competition. But there's an advantage for owner occupants, and we've talked about this in other videos. There's a first look period. Now this listing mentions it here. It says this property is subject to a 5-day first look period. They're actually using first look period incorrectly. What they mean there is that they're not going to accept an offer within the first 5 days. So it needs to sit on the market at least 5 days before the asset manager will pick an offer or start negotiating. But here's the cool thing. The real first look period is this. That's what the law says. Per California law, this the first look initiative. No investor offers accepted within the first 30 days of listing. So owner occupants, you have a leg up on investors who are going to try to buy these to flip them. So this property's gone all the way through the foreclosure process, foreclosed at courthouse steps. It went through the SB 1079 process. Nobody bought it then. And now here it is on the open market. And investors can't get to it. You have an advantage as an owner occupant. And here, you don't necessarily need to show up with a bag of cash. Now, if the property is falling apart and is non-financeable, which does happen occasionally, you will need a bag of cash. But you can usually finance these properties with a renovation loan if it needs work. You can finance it with the conventional financing. So this is where you go for your deal. You're not going to compete with investors. You're just going to compete with other owner occupants. And there's another angle on these properties that are listed as well. Here's another unique property I want to show you because there's a cool angle on this one. So this is listed on the MLS, but it'll be on Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, wherever you find the properties. You can usually sort by bank owned. So what you're looking for, it says real estate owned. That's what we want. So it's truly owned by the lender. That could be a big lender or it could be a small lender, somebody who maybe has one property. I've dealt with properties like that as well. And then it says here auction. So that's interesting. Shouldn't the auction be over? Well, this is a unique property type. So this one's unique. This is actually on auction.com. So you're going to go to auction.com to find the property. It is eligible under the first look initiative. That's what we talked about. The first 30 days, only owner occupants can buy it. No investor offers will be negotiated. This is one where you have to enter your offer through auction.com. You can still use an agent, and I recommend using an agent because there's some hair on this one, I like to say. This one will also be subject to a 5% buyer's premium. So understand if you're using auction.com that the final sale price, let's say you get it for $3 million, there's going to be a 5% buyer's premium that goes on top. So you have to be ready to do that. Theoretically, you can finance this, but you're not going to have a financing contingency. It says right here, no inspection or financing contingencies. One other important thing to notice, it will be delivered occupied. So that is the unique angle on this one, and that's why it's been sitting here 154 days. Most people are scared to take a property that's occupied. Now, what we would like to know is who's in there. Is it the previous owner? If it's a previous owner, it's very easy to get them out with the know-how. And if it's a renter, then there's a different process you need to take, especially if that renter has a lease in place, because that lease will have to be honored. It might take quite a bit of money to buy them out of that lease or cash for keys. But here's the cool thing. We specialize in selling tenant-occupied properties. To be honest, we're one of the few that's properly positioned to help you with this in purchasing a property that is tenant occupied, that has been foreclosed on. So this is an opportunity. It's not an easy opportunity, but if it's an easy opportunity, then it's not really an opportunity where there's going to be much upside. So there should be upside in this one as long as we get it at the right numbers. So anyway, exciting stuff. Wanted to run through that. I know a lot of you folks watch these videos to track the foreclosure numbers, but let's put it into action. Let's do something with it. You don't have to have a bag of cash sitting around necessarily to get a deal on a property, but you do have to get out there and write some offers. Make sure you check out the SB 1079 videos so you can better understand the post-auction foreclosure process, and subscribe to our free weekly email newsletters so you are kept up to date on what is going on in Southern California and beyond. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent from Wire Associates, and the next thing you need to know is in this video right here.